Hey y'all, it's Kenzie Fitzpatrick with Wideners.com. In this video, I'll be going over how to aim a gun using the most common sight types. From the newest shooters to super advanced shooters, learning how to aim a gun takes a ton of time, and we're going to break it down for you in this video. These sights are going to be predominantly iron sights. We're going to shoot a pistol with iron sights. We have a shotgun with a front fiber optic sight and no rear sight, and we have flip-up iron sights on the AR-15 we're going to shoot. First, let's take a look at the types of gun sights. If you're not familiar with gun sight terminology, I'll quickly explain it for you. Almost all modern guns have a pair of sights attached to them for aiming purposes. This is called your front sight and your rear sight. Now, while we say front and rear sight, it doesn't matter if the gun is going to have 3 circles. Maybe they have a blacked out rear sight with a circle front sight. They could have the fiber optic front sight. Don't be confused by the different sights, but just understand that all guns are going to have a front and a rear sight. Iron sights are also called simple or open sights. These sights are affixed and they come standard on almost all firearms. The front iron sight is generally a singular blade shape, while the rear sight can come in a variety of different shapes. Iron sights can be found on a variety of gun types, including rifles and pistols. There are also bead sights. These are most commonly found on shotguns. Bead sights are a round shape, usually made of metal, that sits on the end of the gun barrel. Bead sights are commonly used on guns that do not have a pronounced rear sight. It's also common for some revolver models to have a front bead sight along with a low-profile rear sight. Let's talk about how to understand how to aim a gun. Learning the basic knowledge of how to aim using a rear sight and a front sight will give you the know-how and skills necessary to head to the range confidently. Even if you outfit your guns with a red dot optic or a scope, it's always a good idea to keep your iron sights on the gun as a fail-safe. Optics can fail. You can always rely on iron sights to shoot accurately when you need them most. Learning how to aim a gun can vary from one gun to the next. While aiming is a part of accurately shooting a gun, it's just one shooting fundamental that works together. You have to also incorporate your breath control, hold control, trigger control, and follow through. You need all of these to make the perfect shot. How to aim a gun. Getting started. Before learning to aim a gun, there are a few common questions that frequently come up. I'll quickly address them. Can I adjust my sights? The answer is absolutely. Most rear sights are adjustable for elevation and windage. Not everyone sees the same, so please, just for me, make sure you sight in your gun with your iron sights. Why does my front sight have a color? Well, most manufacturers will mark the front iron sight of a weapon with a white or a red dot of high visibility paint. The idea is to allow you to be able to see the front sight clearly while aiming at a target in front of a variety of different lighting situations and backgrounds. What if my front sight is a fiber optic sight? If your front sight is a fiber optic, make sure you can see the color well. Fiber optics can come in a variety of colors. For example, green is my favorite and I pick it up really well with my eye. But there's also red fiber optic. That could work really well for you. When you're aiming with iron sights, the front sight is still the focal plane, so visibility is crucial to having an accurate aim point. So whether it's a bead sight, iron sights, or fiber optic, it just has to work for you. What about mounted optics? Well, just like iron sights, mounted optics like red dot optics or scopes have to be sighted in, and especially sighted into your eye. Read the manual of your chosen optic to properly sight it in so you know your aim is true. Aiming basics. Sight alignment. Before diving into different types of guns, let's go over the basics of how to aim a gun. A proper aim involves the target, the rear sight, and most importantly, the front sight. Sight alignment and sight picture are 2 components that make up an accurate aim point. Sight alignment is a process of lining up the rear sight and the front sight appropriately. Sight picture is putting the aligned sights onto the target in the desired location to hit the dead center. Keeping your sight alignment while shooting and finding your target is where things get really tricky. Your front sight should be over the spot on the target that you want to hit. Your rear sight are then going to align up with the front sight in focus. Once you have the sight alignment and the proper sight picture, that's when your eyes focus on the front sight and pull the trigger. Aiming a semi-automatic pistol. Pistol iron sights are the easiest to learn how to aim with. Proper sight alignment for iron sights is the rear sight aligned with the front sights. Rear sights can be shaped like a U or like a V, so don't be confused when you see different setups on different guns. I prefer a circle-dotted night sight that shows white during the day but glows green in the dark. Having all three circles in a line will give an accurate point of aim. Another example that has the same principle when aiming, but looks way different, are speed sights. Even though the sights are diamonds, all three should be in alignment for an accurate shot. Aiming a revolver. Most revolvers don't have rear sights. The metal above the cylinder of the revolver will have a groove machined out of it that helps form that sight picture. The front sight of a revolver will typically be a metal blade or a notch post. Revolver sights like these are fixed, meaning there's no way to make adjustments on them. The front blade or post should be lined up to be flush and even in the groove of the rear of the gun. If you were to set a table on top of the revolver, the sights would still be in alignment. If your revolver does have a rear sight, align it just as you would a semi-automatic pistol. When the front and the rear sights are the same width, it's extremely hard to see your target in between these sights. I switch my front sight to a skinnier sight so I can see my target between the rear sight and the front sight. Aiming a shotgun. Aiming a shotgun is vastly different from aiming with a rifle or a pistol. Shotguns are designed for your eye to be the rear sight. You can still have a gunsmith install a rear sight on the shotgun, which does make it a lot easier to shoot. Most shotguns don't come with a rear sight. The front of the shotgun is typically a bead or a fiber optic, and occasionally a notch or a blade. Just like a pistol though, your front sight should be your point of focus when shooting. A cheek weld is where your cheek comes to rest on the stock of the shotgun and is what forms the rear sight or your eye sight line. When you have a shotgun target, your front sight should be in the center of the target where it's in line perfectly with your eye. Most shotgun targets are moving targets. So while this is a little bit different, you're still going to have your front sight in focus, but for shotguns, you might be leading the target, but still keeping aim of that front dot, front fiber, or front bead on your target. The key to aiming a shotgun is repetition. The cheek weld that you form is the base or the foundation of your sight alignment. The minute your cheek weld moves left, right, or comes off the gun completely, your sight alignment is gone. So make sure you form a perfect cheek weld every time. Aiming a rifle. These days, stock rifles come with all sorts of different iron sights. For example, my lever action rifle has a front bead sight, while my semi-automatic rifle has flip-up sights where the front sight is a notch and the rear sight is a circle. When you have a set of iron sights on a rifle, the concept of aiming should be pretty simple. It should be the same that you've been doing with a pistol or a shotgun. If the rear sight and the front sights are set up like pistol sights, simply line them across so that they're even. Do you have a circular rear sight and a notch front sight? If so, the tip of the front sight should be centered in the circular rear sight for an accurate shot. If you have a bead at the front and a groove towards the rear similar to that of a revolver, aim it the same way. So why iron sights? I was taught to always learn how to shoot using iron sights on any gun for a variety of reasons. Red dot optics can fail, so it's a good idea if you concealed carry daily with a red dot optic to leave your iron sights on your gun. That's what I do, and that way I can still see my iron sights and line them up even though it's through the red dot window. Scopes can also fail similar to red dot optics. They can also lose zero or the mounting system could be faulty. So having flip-up backup iron sights or even offset iron sights is something that I highly recommend you doing if you shoot a rifle. In shooting competitions, iron sight offsets are allowed in all divisions. So for me, I find them handy in case anything with my scope fails or my red dot optic, but more importantly, I can use my offset iron sights to be sighted in at a closer distance while my scope can reach out to something like 300 to 400 yards. Iron sights are also very inexpensive. They're more durable and they don't add a lot of that extra weight to a gun. If there's a front sight and a rear sight, aiming with iron sights is almost universal across all types of firearm platforms. Mastering your aim. Learning to aim a gun isn't difficult, but it does take a fair amount of time and practice. So how much should you practice? As often as you can. You need to work on your hand-eye coordination and your muscle memory, and that's why it's important to dry fire at home just as much as you live fire out on the range. A good suggestion is to practice aiming while dry firing your weapon. Always make sure that your gun is unloaded while practicing, and be sure to use good trigger discipline when you're doing dry fire, just as you would on the range doing live fire. Once you've mastered aiming with iron sights, aiming with a red dot optic or a scope is easier than ever. Remember that learning how to aim a gun is only one shooting fundamental on making the proper shot. Be sure to practice all the other aiming fundamentals and tie them all together for the most accurate shooting experience. Get all your ammunition needs at Widener's. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos coming soon.